When Assassin's Creed Unity came out, it's safe to say that it had its problems. But as new Assassin's Creed titles have been released, I've noticed a common trend, and that is people begging the developers to bring back the parkour system that Unity had, and often stating Unity as having the best movement of all the AC games. I'm a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I completely missed out on Unity when it was released for reasons we'll go into soon. So I have tasked myself with playing Unity for the first time to see if it can make it into my top 20 games of all time. And for those with a keen eye, you can notice that Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is placed at number 10 on that list. Now let's be honest, Assassin's Creed Unity has zero chance whatsoever of making it into my top 20 of all time, but I want an excuse to play it, so here we are. But I'm not just doing this with Assassin's Creed Unity, but I'm also doing it with a ton of classic and new games that for whatever reason I never played. Games like Metal Gear Solid 1, Red Dead Redemption 2, and even the Halo games. So if you want to see games that actually might have a chance of breaking into my top 20 in the future, make sure you subscribe. Unity was the 8th main game in the franchise to come out back in 2014. It's safe to say that up until that point, all the Assassin's Creed games had reviewed quite well, and the series was at an all-time high popularity-wise. Can I also quickly add that I thought this game came out on the Xbox 360? When did I suffer a minor stroke? I'm so confused. Now, this is a bit personal, but my family migrated from Italy to Australia back in the 60s. So when I was playing the Ezio trilogy as it was released, it felt very personal to me that I finally got to explore Italy in some way or another. I went from a teenager without the ability to speak any Italian whatsoever to a teenager that was telling my grandparents to rest in peace every time I saw them.
Requiescat in pace, you bastard. I don't think so.
I was such an Assassin's Creed fanboy that I would pre-order every game, and I would also wait in line for the midnight release. I miss those days. In 2014, I was 24 years old, and GTA 5 was being re-released on the Xbox One and PS4 just a week after Unity. And look, funds were tight back then, so I had to decide which game to go for, and I decided on GTA 5. Looking back, it's safe to say that I made the right decision. The reviews at the time were fairly mixed, but most of them leaned on a positive side of things. Other than the reviews that were bought and paid for by Ubisoft, they all had something in common, and that was the extreme technical and almost game-breaking bugs the game possessed. I went back and I watched the IGN and GameSpot reviews, and they don't really mention the bugs. It's really weird. The internet had a field day showcasing all the wild and scary glitches that took place on the initial release, and it was sort of fun to watch it all unfold. Nowadays, gamers love to see games fail before they're even released, which is really weird. I'll never understand it. But back in then, it was strange for a game, a AAA title game, to fail as heavily as Unity did. Up until that point, Ubisoft's reputation was fairly high. Games like Far Cry 3, Splinter Cell, Blacklist, Watch Dogs, and even the Trials games were all well received. It wasn't like today where Ubisoft are known for being a greedy company that releases average games, so many of them missing the mark of what people expect from them. Assassin's Creed Unity will forever be known as one of the main reasons Ubisoft started to lose their reputation, and they never fully recovered. I mean, they are still a multi-billion-dollar company, and they release pretty decent games, but they'll never be looked upon in such a positive light again. Going into Unity, I put all of those previous judgments and my dislike for Ubisoft as a company aside, and sat down in my comfy recliner with some croissants and delved into my first experience as a new assassin, Arnaud Dorian. The main story is set in Paris during the French Revolution from 1789 to 1794. My understanding of the French Revolution is the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer, and essentially being taxed for everything, causing them to starve. That's pretty much happening in today's society, to be honest. I can't afford to eat this. That then turned into mass riots and the majority of the population fighting the monarchy for things to change. Obviously, there's way more to it, but that's the gist. So you would think with all of this going on in Paris that the story would be a bit more involved with that, but instead, it's essentially just a revenge story. And this game, it came out 10 years ago, but there will be spoilers, obviously. Arnaud's father, who we later find out was an assassin, is killed when Arnaud's just a little boy. He is then taken in by a guardian named Francois de la Sueur, who happens to be a Templar. Many years later, Arnaud is tasked to deliver a letter to de la Sueur, but fails to do so, causing him to die. Not only is Arnaud responsible for Francois' death, but he's also been banging his daughter Elise on the side. So he's a great, yeah, definitely should have adopted him. He's a fantastic son. Arnaud meets a friend of his father in prison who invites him to join the Brotherhood in Paris, which goes really, really well.
Your rank and title are stripped from you, and you are hereby exiled from the Brotherhood of Paris.
Arnaud, with the help of Elise de la Sueur, does whatever it takes to get revenge on the people who killed his girlfriend's dad. It's a simple revenge story that is made extremely weird by the odd choice to have all the voice actors speak in heavy British accents.
Took you long enough, piss pot. You poisoned Mirabeau.
It honestly would have been so easy to find people with French accents, and it would have made such a large impact on the quality of the story, that's for sure. They might as well gotten me to voice these French citizens. I mean, how does this sound? Can things ever go back to the way they were before, do you think? Do you? After everything that's happened, everything we've lost, Elise, You cheated. You took too long. Oh yeah, and Elise de la Sueur dies in the end, and it's only then that Arnaud understands what the Creed is all about, and he ends up rejoining the Brotherhood in Paris. This might be an unpopular opinion, it probably isn't, but I actually really enjoy the love story between Arnaud and Elise, who is a Templar herself. It was a strange relationship in the Assassin's Creed lore, and really the only highlight in the whole story. The rest of the characters are completely forgettable. I couldn't even name one single other person. There is this fat guy who I can tell you right now, he's not doing a leap of faith anytime soon. The Ezio story did an amazing job of introducing us to historic characters like Leonardo da Vinci. But other than a small cameo with Napoleon and some minor side missions with Marie Toussaint, there really isn't anyone of note. Look, it's me and Snoop Dogg. I can't believe Marie Toussaint made this. How cool. Now, I'm no expert on France, and I've never been, but other than being in Paris, there really wasn't anything else to make me feel like I was there. In Assassin's Creed 2, or it might have been Brotherhood, there's a moment where Ezio says that the latte would be better with milk.
No, have you considered adding sugar maybe? Or latte?
And it's just a clever little bit of writing that insinuates that Ezio created the latte. Maybe Arnaud would have eaten a snail or something. I have no idea what else France has, but there was just a lack of culture, and it's something that I really appreciated in the other titles. I would love to see another game with Arnaud in it, as we never learn about his fate or what ends up becoming of him, and I think Ubisoft really should go back to making multiple games with one character and flesh out their stories more. I mean, we literally played Ezio as a fetus inside of his mother, and we're with him up until he dies. Yet with Arnaud, we know nothing about him. I mean, what happened to his mother? Why did he have to be adopted in the first place? Why should we care about this character if we have no idea what's going on with him? Can Ubisoft start telling us these things, please, for pity's sake? Okay, it's safe to say that the story is fairly average, but I tell you what is not, and that is the city of Paris. What a setting. The map in Unity is probably my favourite of any game. A heavily dense city that can be fully traversed pretty much on the rooftops. No running through big empty areas, just one huge, extremely lively city. It seemed so real that you could pretty much smell the human excrement. Isn't this the river that people in the recent Olympics contracted AIDS from after being told it was safe to swim in? The streets are filled with activity, and it's something that that no other Assassin's Creed game has been able to recreate. I honestly found myself in awe every time I would round a corner and be forced to walk through a crowd of people who were either protesting or maybe they were watching an execution. The amount of people on screen would cause some issues, some random NPCs would pop up and disappear in front of you, but I would much prefer that than pretty much empty streets like every other Assassin's Creed game. Even though the story is average, the way the developers use the city of Paris as a tool to tell the story is really one of the best in the series. Take Notre Dame for instance. Early on there is a mission that tasks us with assassinating a target that is inside the famous cathedral. Now there's multiple ways to do this. You can find a key inside, go into the dungeons below, or you can find an open window and sneak your way in. I think Unity was the first Assassin's Creed game to really give us a choice of how to kill our targets and make us feel like real assassins. Most of the main Assassin's missions are like this, and because of that, it gives us players multiple reasons to replay them. I also think they nailed the pacing as well. Each sequence was a mission or two of investigating, then the final mission was one big sandbox area to kill the target. There were no long drawn out missions that were frustrating or repetitive, and that was something that really plagued the previous games. Even the side content is fairly varied, little missions that take a minute or two to complete, or whole side missions that are more in depth, but it's all optional. Best of all, there's none of that filler garbage Animus missions. What were they thinking with that? Now, if I had friends, I probably would have played the co-op, but try convincing anyone to play a game that's 10 years old. I did play one mission with somebody else, and I'm not sure if it was AI or not, and you can do the co-op missions by yourself, but that's sort of pointless. Every time I went to attempt a co-op mission, the servers were down, so I'm not even sure if you can still play it or not, so I'm not really a fair judge when it comes to the co-op, and yeah, so pretty much didn't play that whatsoever. But the co-op isn't what drove me to play Unity, it was the parkour. It is definitely the most free-flowing of any game in the series. Run through buildings and slide under obstacles, use the descent mechanics to easily climb down, and best of all, it seems you can fall from higher without taking any damage. But it is hard to say if a system like this would work in a game like Assassin's Creed Mirage. Paris was an amazing setting for this parkour system because of the many levels even one building had. But going forward, I would be interested to see this parkour system used in a future game to see if it worked. There's obviously a reason they haven't redone it. No matter the year Assassin's Creed was released, whether it was the original back in 2007 or even the latest release last year, the parkour always leads players to do things that they didn't intend. Accidentally jumping off a wall to your death or falling in front of an enemy NPC by mistake. Every game has its examples of awkward moments of gameplay, and Unity is no exception, but this time around it felt more like a skill error as opposed to bad game design. And as I got more familiar with the controls and my surroundings, the more fluid it became and the more badass I felt when running across the rooftops. I'm no parkour expert. I mean, I can barely crawl out of bed in the morning. But this to me seemed like the least realistic parkour of any Assassin's Creed game. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing, in fact. I want to feel like I am doing things that are impossible to do, and that's why I play video games in the first place. Now, a real problem with the older Assassin's Creed games is the combat just felt like a parrying simulator. You would be surrounded by like 50 dudes and just parry them one at a time and not get hit. Some reviews I watched stated that Unity felt the same, but I think it was the complete opposite. Instead of being on the defensive, I would often find myself attacking enemies before they even swung at me once. Parrying is something I did often, but it was something I would usually do while killing another enemy. You couldn't really just stand there and parry anyway, because chances are some arsehole would just shoot you in the face. They were so accurate that they would easily win silver at the Olympics, just like this guy. At times I was getting overwhelmed by enemies and I would use one of those very overpowered smoke bombs. And other times I would be able to defeat a big group of enemies with ease. Yeah, the combat was fairly well balanced. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was hard. Yeah, you just never knew what was really coming at you. There were even a few instances where I'd be in a fight with 2 or 3 baddies and nearby enemies would be completely oblivious to what was going on. I'm no history expert, but I'm pretty sure AirPods were not invented yet. So either these guys were deaf or they were pretending they didn't know what was going on so that they weren't next to die. Now, stealth is a bit of a problem in Unity. It was always hard to tell if an enemy would see me or not, and using the cover system left a bit to be desired. I should have mentioned this earlier, but there were really no glitches, no major glitches anyway, and I might have crashed once, but other than that, it seems like most of the problems have been fixed. I was playing it on the PlayStation 5 and it was a digital copy, so if you are worried about bugs and whatnot, it's all pretty much been patched out. As you progress through the story, you will unlock skill points that can be used to unlock certain abilities. By the time I had finished the main story, I had unlocked about 2/3 of them, so I really had to consider what I was going to unlock next. Some unlock combat skills or more health, others give you different equipment like poison bombs, or the ability to unlock higher difficulty doors and chests. There is a good mix of skills and not so many that you'll have a hard time memorizing them all. We also have the ability to customize what Arno wears. Different hoods and pants, each with different bonuses like more stealth or more health. I pretty much just went with whatever looked best. As someone with high fashion sense, I understand the importance of always having to look your best, especially while killing people. Something that Assassin's Creed Mirage missed badly was the ability to use different types of weapons. It was so fun switching from a sleek sword to a big pole weapon just to change up gameplay styles. I say that, but I use the sword like 95% of the time. So that was a lie. A complete lie. I didn't care that there was other weapons there. So, you know, I defend Assassin's Creed Mirage with that one. Overall, this is the most fun I had playing an Assassin's Creed game in years. Exploring Paris reminded me of the magic I felt when running through Florence as Ezio back in the day. The combat was good and the parkour was, in my opinion, hands down the best in the whole franchise. But the story and the lack of characters really lets the experience down, and because of that, Assassin's Creed Unity does not make it into my top 20 games of all time. Obviously, it never had a chance, like I said in the video at the start. But look, if you are a fan of the Assassin's Creed series and you haven't had a chance to play Unity yet because of how it was received when it was initially released, I think it's safe to say that you can comfortably go back and play that game for the first time. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go finish my croissants now. Make sure you subscribe. See ya.